Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and welcome to the late one with yourself, Silburn. And I just want to wish you a wonderful afternoon. Let me see if this is connecting properly. Yep, that's good. And for those on Instagram as well, and for those on YouTube as well, I want to wish you a wonderful evening. And I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening on the late one. As I just start the week. This is like my starting of the week. The starting of the week whereby I kick off things from Wednesday, go to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and if anything happens, go on to Sunday. For the past few weeks leading up to the Jamaica elections, I was grilling it, which was Wednesday for Don't Go with the Flow, which is where I just go with the flow. And then on Thursday, then we got In Review, where we look at some of the top news with Kima, Keisha, and David. And if one of the key team members is missing, then we go on for other persons as well. And then on Friday, we go with the Youth Connections. And with Youth Connections, we try to identify a young person where we can tap into, keeping that spotlight on the youth. And Saturday, Across the Atlantic, where we look at some of the international network connection with Black excellence and all those sort of things as we roll in what is going on and what's happening in the world. For this week, you may have seen what I put on the topic there. Hi, Simone, and persons on Instagram, Coochline, Gracious, YouTube as well. And what I put tonight is, and it's obvious what is happening in the UK, which I just wanted just to go with the flow with, or don't go against the flow with, is the issue of the COVID-19 testing, tracing, and just sort of do a little recap, because what is going on is somewhat, for some will say it's a process we've got to go through while we're in this pandemic. Some is saying there's chaos, and some is saying what is really happening there. Dr. David Burton, we always have a sort of session which we tap into it tomorrow night, where he goes into a bit depth. But I'm operating from the layman angle today. The next thing also is Brexit. I mean, I'm happy. I'm not saying I'm happy that Brexit is back on their agenda, but as you have known over the past month, 6 months or so, everything's about COVID. And for those who are fascinated by politics, it was so intriguing during that course of that time. For those who like politics, with all the thing with Brexit, order, the rambling, the election, and all of that which was happening in the UK, and it was so refreshing just to hear politics again on the scene. That is just my perspective, just refreshing to hear politics on the scene. And leading on to the politics, of course, one of the things which I said I was going to touch on is Jamaican politics, because Andrew Holness just won a landslide victory, which people don't call it a landslide, people call it an avalanche, or people call it a tumultuous or hurricane or whatever like that, which happened. But the fantastic thing is that there are lots of women in the cabinet, and which is really fascinating with having so many women in the cabinet at this time. And also, and there's some other thing regarding Barbados and some other thing which I want to touch on later. But first and foremost, Brexit. Do you remember Brexit? Who remember Brexit? And what this Brexit thing is about? That is the fascinating thing. Brexit, and it is Brexit. But before I go any further regarding Brexit, I want to say that the weather has been fantastic. Totally fantastic. Vitamin D is such a crucial thing that they say, like within the Black community. I'm not going to say BME. Black community, vitamin D is so crucial and so important. And as a result of that, I said I'm going to make sure that I really go out more in the evening and do my walk, and sometimes working from home, of course, and sitting down in the garden there and just getting some vitamin D in your system. And I hope people are doing that as well, because that is fantastic and that is really awesome to get some vitamin D. But before I go any further, let me just play this for you and set the stage. And here
there is an irony here, which is enough. This girl There you have it. He didn't read the protocol. He hasn't read the bill. He doesn't know his stuff. And let's just get this straight to Northern Ireland. I think it's important to take a step back.
It is about two issues where they're going to override international law. It's about exit declarations, Northern Ireland to GB, and the definition of state aid relating to Northern Ireland. Now, if the Prime Minister wants to tell us that there's another part of this bill that I haven't noticed that will deal with this supposed threat of the blockade, I'll give way to him. I'll very happily give way to him and tell me, he can tell us, I'm sure he's read it, I'm sure he knows it, I'm sure he knows it in detail because he's a details man. Come on, tell us what clause protects the threat that he says he's worried about GB to Northern Ireland exports. I give way to him.
Well, the right honourable gentleman can't give way unless he's asked to.
There you have it. He didn't read the protocol. He hasn't read the bill. He doesn't know his stuff.
Kathy, how are you? Okay, so that's just a little snippets of what is happening. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been following up with British politics and what is happening, Brexit is done to a certain extent. I say Brexit is done to a certain extent because what is happening now is to finally go and to secure the process of what was arranged. The government won the last election to get the Brexit deal done. Okay, but there's something else which needs to be done, and which is taking it to the next level. And there's this thing which is called the internal market bill. Okay, and this is the key thing now. The bill sets out the rules for the operation of the UK internal market trade between England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland after the end of the Brexit transition period in January. It proposes no new checks on goods moving from Northern Ireland to the rest of Great Britain, giving UK ministers power to modify or disapply rules relating to the movement of goods that will come into force from 1st of January if the UK and EU are unable to reach an alternate agreement through a trade deal. Powers to override previously agreed obligations on state aid government support for business. The bill explicitly states that these powers should apply even if they are incompatible with international laws. Ministers say the legislation is needed to prevent damaging tariffs on goods traveling from the rest of the UK to Northern Ireland if negotiation with the EU on a free trade agreement fail. But some senior Conservative members, including former Prime Minister Sir John Major, have warned it risks undermining the UK reputation as an upholder of international law. So the nut and bolt of this is what is happening is that it is saying that the government or the Prime Minister is reneging on the arrangement which they had before. And that is why the EU is coming out actually really angry at this. The government is actually saying, listen, hey, we're the government, we can do what we can do, right? So Boris Johnson has told MPs he believes that the EU may not be negotiating in the UK good faith. The PM was explaining why he wants to overwrite parts of the Brexit deal is signed with the EU in January. Right. Now, the thing about this with Brexit is that the UK want to have its own independence. That's a bit strange, isn't it? The UK wants to have its own independence. But at the same time, the UK was a country which has many countries under its rule through colonial powers. And of recent days, I don't know if people have been watching the news, Barbados is actually signaling that they actually want to move away from the UK or the Queen as the head of state, right? Jamaica has been talking about that. Different places have been talking about that, but some of that's not happened. But the UK is on a quest to have its independence. So all what is happening now is everybody is up in arms. The government more than likely will win this in the House, but may have some difficulties getting it through in the House of Lords because the Prime Minister has a massive majority at this present moment. Similar, one could say it with Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister who is called Brogard in Jamaica. And I'll touch on that a bit later. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing some specific shows on Jamaica in regards to this, because Jamaica has some fantastic new MPs, and one wants to really get into that and to see who they are at a certain time. So I'd like to ask persons, and of course this can be on the replay as well, what do you think about the whole aspect of the Brexit plan and the Brexit deal, and the fact that they're trying to renege on the deal, or renege on the plans that they have, the way how they actually got in? Is it that's the way they got in, or they just want to get Brexit done? Let's get Brexit done, which is the key. I count us it. Brexit done is the key thing. The rebel deal, as I would say, this is the rebel deal. The legal definition of good faith, this is what they're talking about. The UK, which is supposed to be the country which brings in laws and the principles, and the standard bearer, is somewhat going against what they believe is the principle. And they said the rebel deal, legal definition of good faith, is stronger than the general accepted meaning of the words. Mr. Johnson told the ladies and comment, a panel of senior backbench MPs, that a no-deal scenario was not what this country wants, is not what our EU friends and partners want from us. Therefore, I have every hope and expectation that it won't come to this. That is what he's actually saying. And the UK, the EU is somewhat very a bit annoyed by this. But ladies and gentlemen, the EU has always been annoyed by what is happening in the UK in regards to Brexit. But I just wanted to touch on that to say that got to keep this in frame. And at the same time, people are not really even fussy. I mean, to be honest with you, people are not really fussy about Brexit. To be, it's for those sick souls, maybe like myself, because everybody's now focusing so much on COVID, so much on what is happening regarding COVID, how it's going to impact their jobs, individuals. That's what people are looking at, the individual aspect of their jobs, of their lives. That is what they're looking at. So Brexit is a side factor, but it is very important, and we must keep the focus on it, because it will affect us at the end of the day. The good thing the other day is that Japan signed a good deal with the EU, with the UK. Congress is actually saying that if the UK renege on the present deal, that they won't be signing any deals with them, with the UK. At the end of the day, I believe it's Trump who is really going to call the shots at the same time. But I strongly believe that there will be a deal, and I strongly believe it will be done properly at the end of the day, because 90% of it is going through already, so you're just going through the process now. But at the same time, the UK do hold the final say at the end of the day. The UK do hold the final say, because at the end of the day, I don't say the end of the day so much times a while ago, they actually have the authority. Normally before, when one studied constitutional law, they say where domestic law and EU law or international law conflict, then EU law prevail or international law prevail. But in this case, that's not the case now. The UK have the final say in regards to this. And I just wanted to touch on that in regards to the Brexit. Now, coronavirus, second national lockdown would be disastrous, the PM says. COVID-19. That terrorist is still out there hanging around, like geezer. And the more we try to get rid of him, he comes back. But something in me is saying to me that, hang on a second. Is it that COVID actually, what we said is going to be here for a lifetime, is actually here, and what we've got to do is learn to somewhat live with it. What they're saying now is that you're not having the amount of death which you used to have before. I know they said the hospital is somewhat getting a bit busy, which is very concerning. I even do a sidestep into Jamaica where they're talking about an excess amount of persons which is getting COVID, and that the hospitals might not be able to handle it. But over the months of during the time of COVID, and as what Dr. Burnett would actually say as well, is that they have learned a lot about how to manage and how to deal with this. It happened with AIDS. It happened with all these different sicknesses before, whereby after a while, they manage to understand it, and therefore they're able to deal with it. Because people are saying, where are the deaths? Now, I'm not saying that we want to see the death, and I'm sure that nobody wants to see the death of people through COVID. But it is a situation whereby it has to be managed. And in school now, many people are in school now, and somebody having any symptoms, people are locking down schools, locking down places. And you wonder, how far will this go? That's just my layman sort of thinking. Because can you imagine if another lockdown? And I do the sidestep again with Jamaica's, where we're the massive lockdown, but at the same time, the economy, UK economy, the furlough system, whereby people are being paid. How long can that go? And the interesting thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're coming on to Christmas, right? And that is where the brunt of the whole thing, because flu is one of the symptoms there. People coughing, people don't want to cough, people are actually stifling their cough still as much as possible. So what the Prime Minister is saying is that a second national lockdown would be likely to have disastrous financial consequences for the UK. And this is where it appeared a committee of MPs. He said the government was doing everything in our power to prevent another national lockdown. And he also admitted that there was enough testing capacity. Many people are blaming and saying the capacity is not good, and they're comparing with Portugal and other places where you can get it done very quickly. People are traveling all over the country trying to get testing done, and that seemed not to be happening. But I think the good thing about it is that at least there's testing being done, and at least things are happening in a certain way. And I believe what is happening now in a certain way is that it is actually, I don't know, it's like a part of the process. It's simply a part of the process, whereby the blame colossal spike in demand for ongoing problems when the coronavirus case in the UK increased by 3,991, taking the total to 378,219, according to figures from the government. A further 20 people have died within 28 days of testing for COVID-19. This brings the UK death total by this criteria to 41,684. So the question many people are saying as well is, so why are we not hearing about the death of persons from flu, from cancer, and are they sort of bringing that into the frame? I've always wanted to see a level of comparison by that. Time is a master. Time definitely is a master in regards to this. And it's a very interesting day, I must say. Funnily, I was watching something and they talking about somewhere in, I think it was Saudi Arabia, and some countries where there's some camel race, and that couldn't be done because of COVID. COVID strikes everywhere. And you have to question yourself, where does this go? Where does this stop? Does it keep going like this? And time is the answer, as someone said. Yeah. Government claims on testing, what they're saying? Testing, government claims on test centers and international fact check. The government is facing criticism over its world-beating coronavirus testing system after people reported struggles to get tests, right? Claim one, Matt Hancock, average distance travel to a test site is now just 5.8 miles. Health Secretary made this claim. He said the average distance was 6.4 miles. The problem is that we have no telling whether this is the case. And there are three aspects I understand regarding testing. You test, then it is sent off somewhere, and then after a while there's an investigation, right? And they push this thing down your throat or whatever like that. What's your thoughts on COVID? Is this geezer here to stay or so? Do you think it's a way of life that we've got to live in? What about the mask? Do you still wear these masks? Do you wear it every day? Does it make you claustrophobia? Does it make you want to faint, as some people say? Fortunately, I do not have to wear the mask everywhere that I go. I will put on the mask if I go into the supermarket and get out very fast and just take it off. because I find it very uncomfortable. I see children going to school, you're looking at them, everybody's in a mask, style mask, you know, and you ask yourself this question, how long does it go? But the most important thing is this, as I said, everybody has discovered a leadership over their life, a stewardship over their lives. And as a result of that, what they've got to do is to make sure, simple as this. 1, you stay alert. 2, you control the virus. And 3, you save lives. That's what it is. And that's the same thing when it comes on to terrorists, right? When you have terrorists before, Northern Ireland and Islam attack, what you do, you don't stop what you normally do. That's what the UK is. That's what America says. You don't negotiate with terrorists. What you do, you stay alert. If you see a suspicious bag or suspicious thing on the train or whatever, what you do, you call the authorities, right? And you get people away and you save lives. And I believe that's the same process, because the lack of social interaction, I believe, is very concerning, right? The lack of people getting together, they say is 6 is enough. That is that tune which I played with the video there, is 6 enough. And you know, so therefore that's my take in regards to that. Now, I'm not going to touch on this now, but I'll touch on it tomorrow. And that's the one with the Black Lives Matters dance from you know, Britain Got Talent. Over 20,000 signatures. Wow. Over 20,000 signatures of people complaining. And it makes you wonder that there's a racist guy said something about, instead of showing Black Lives Matters and a white man police on the neck of a black man, why not show dances of muggings of black men caused by black men? And then let's open a can of worms that the guy Jordan Banjo, the one who created the dance, actually says the success of the dance is actually showing that there's really a problem. And I believe that is a problem as well. It is subjective at the same time. And I believe that, you know, Alicia Dixon, she said, kiss my BA. Don't know. But it is a very interesting moment. But one of the things that I keep saying all the while is that amidst all of this, make sure that we actually take control still and don't let these things run with us. Now, my final bit, which I want to talk about tonight, is Jamaica, because I find Jamaica a bit very exciting. I find the recent elections very exciting, very inspiring, and very motivating. And I say why? Why is because you've got this new raft of members of parliament. And I was doing a little research earlier. I think I wrote it down here. And it says that there's an increased number of female members of both houses. 18 of the 63 elected members of parliament were women or are women. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Kamala Johnson said, and pointed out that there are now 38 women in both houses. That's a record, you know. And I think Jamaica is poised for some great things at this time regarding the election. And there's exciting days ahead, to the point that I believe that I'll have to dedicate a show per week in regards to Jamaican possible politics. And I tell you why, because there's an upcoming leadership race for the members of the PNP. Many people said it's going to be either between Mr. Mark Golden, Mr. Julian Robinson, and Lisa Anna. Lisa Anna seemed to be the forefront, because you want someone who can take on Brogard, which is the prime minister, the charismatic prime minister, the all-powerful prime minister now, who has secured his second term, even though he served before, but very shortly after the demission of Bruce Golding, and he took over. And there's some sort of little bangarang which is happening, whereby being a man Zagazai, his girlfriend, Ms. Crystal Robinson, wrote a letter to Peter Phillips to say, it's time for you to step down. You got 30 days to go, leading up to the local government election in November. And she's been really criticized by it. And And as a result of that, you've got persons who are actually saying she was bright, rude, and out of order. Some say she's forthright, and some say maybe what she said was to be said. Because what you have sometimes is things that need to be said are not said, and then someone sometimes is a scapegoat that bring things out. I'm not critical of the bigger picture of Crystal Robinson. I'm critical maybe of the timing of how she did it. But at the same time, I've not watched, but I've heard and I've seen, and during that time, PJ Patterson and all these different guys who are now elderly statesmen, they were young, overzealous, and they are running with their leaders, running with Manley, running with Edward Siaga, Senior Sankey, and go back home. And it shows that the zealousness in young people should be encouraged, but also the wisdom of the elders should actually stay there and guide them. And this is one of the reasons why I believe it's very important for leaders to know when to step back and to groom young people in. Andrew Holness was young when he came into power first. People didn't know of him. He was Minister of Education, young star boy. And then he lost the first election against Portia Simpson when he called a snap election to secure his mandate after he took over from Bruce Golding. As a result of that, when he did that, he got back into the trenches and then he started to build himself again. And then he secured the next election in 2016. 2016 was a threshold here for many places. So 2016 he took over, and then after he took over, then he built himself to the point whereby a massive social network team, a massive social media team, and he built himself to the point whereby everybody sees it. And with the advent of COVID, was completely in the face of people every day. Presence is very important, and so therefore, with all of that, he became known. Now, how will Lisa Hanna be known? How will anybody else be known? They'll be only known by them being placed in a position of leadership. And if anything, Mark Golding, Julian Robinson, Lisa Hanna, or whosoever will be there for the next 4 years, unless another snap election is called, 4 or 5 years, and then they'll be able to build themselves. Because I kid you not, what I do find is that when persons are in position of leadership, it's like something else comes upon them. Something else comes upon them whereby they become very astute. They've got team around them, people around them that build them, people around them that try to undermine them, but it builds something in them, I believe. I believe that even with the fight that Lisa Hanna is even having now for that seat, where she has been there for a couple of terms, where she won by 14, and they're having a recount presently as I speak, I believe it's a humbling experience that will teach her something. Somehow there'll be a teaching moment, and she'll be able to build from that. That's what leadership is about. So I won't be surprised if Lisa Hanna becomes the leader of the People's National Party, and ultimately one day become the second woman prime minister of Jamaica. Why not? Why not? You know. So it's an interesting day in Jamaica this time, and I know that based on what I've been listening to and reading, there's also the issue about the Senate, that Peter Phillips should not have maybe named the Senate as yet, or people should not feel like they have to stay in the Senate when he steps down, because obviously he said he's going to step down. He's going to step down in the next 3 months or so, and well, what's her name gave him 30 days to do that, but he's going to be the opposition leader for a while. Now, the persons who are in the Senate, they'll be there for a while, and if they want to get Bunting back in, or somehow they've got to keep the space for somebody. So there's a lot of good wranglings going on. But the most important thing for the People's National Party at this time is to come together and do what they got to do. And they got to do an election, a very effective opposition. But very interesting about this opposition is that with the raft of ministries that the President Andrew Holness have, and the different cabinet ministers, and if there's only 14, well, I think they'll get it anyhow. You got 14 members of parliament, and you got some in the Senate, 14 plus 8. Okay, so they got the figure there, if anything, to bring persons, because it's like they'll have to be doing some doubling up because they got a young person. So these are the shadow ministers in order to shadow the president ministry in Jamaica. So it's an interesting time and it's an interesting day. And you know, while I'm on to the Caribbean as well, I believe one of the things that Jamaica needs to really think about at this time, and it's something what the UK have, is having a fixed election date. A fixed election date is whereby you will know when an election is going to be, unless something happens, like in the UK, whereby you've got to go back and get some majority and do some votes in order to have an election to get away from the fixed date for elections. Happy with the UK because of the Brexit, where the government was just in this stalemate position where they couldn't go forward, couldn't go backward, and it was infighting. And they had the election after they went back to Parliament to get permission to do it. And as a result of that, that is where we are now. I believe Jamaica need to do that, having that fixed election date in order to have some level of tenure and some sort of security at the period of that time. So therefore, a prime minister can't just get up and say, I call election in 3 weeks, because he sees that his majority is there based on the polls. What do you think about that? And secondly, as well, I believe that something which has been on the backside of the desert in Jamaica, which I've been talking about for a while, Peter Phillips put that in. Barbados have jumped the gun, and that is time to remove the Queen as the head of state. This is something which has been talked about for many times. Many people have been talking about this. Many different governments have been talking about this. Portia Simpson Miller government actually said, at one point she said, she's the Queen, right? And Peter Phillips brought that into his manifesto. And somehow that is a discussion which seems not to be having, and it's very important that that discussion is had, and to really take the discussion further to come to a resolution. I always believe that it's important to have a resolution, to have a decision that going around and skirting around the table. And that is also similar when it comes on to the whole aspect of overseas voting, diaspora voting. It is something which has been talked about for a while, but no one seems to want to actually go and bail the cat. Who is going to bail the cat when it comes on to overseas voting? Nobody wants to touch that topic. Nobody wants to touch that guy. But it is something that needs to be done. So let's hopefully that with one of the advice to the Holness government is to really come to some sort of resolution and to deal with that whole issue in regards to overseas voting, whether you want it or not, whether there's a way that people can vote while they may be on a holiday at the High Commission. Things are becoming so progressive online now. You know, people having companies and going to companies' house, you have some authentication code. And those sort of code is able to somewhat help you to have your level of identity. So something like that must happen. And when people sometimes say in regards to overseas voting that you have to have property there, you've got to be paying tax, trust me, lots of people in Jamaica, when they vote at election time, they do not have properties and they do not pay tax. I believe the only criteria for that to happen is simply to have a Jamaican passport and is a citizen of Jamaica. I was going to take up mine, but I don't know where it is now. And to deal with also Prime Minister Andrew Holness, deal with the issue of the Queen as the final head of state to be removed, and to deal with it. Deal with it. That's the most important. Deal with it. Of course, people are going to say we're going to need visa. Well, Jamaica always need visa. I think Barbados now don't need visa. It's called the UK, but they may have to have it. But that's their issue there. But at least they are moving forward to it to 2021. They mentioned it in 2015 and said they're working towards it. And they say next year, 2021, it will be done. So therefore, Jamaica need to deal with that as much as possible. So yeah, so I just wanted to set the stage for the week, because it's going to be a packed week, because tomorrow as usual, I'll have the dynamic trio. Let me see if I can find them. The dynamic trio, which is David. Yep. There we are. David, Kima, and Keisha. And they'll be coming on tomorrow night with the late one, the In Review, where we're looking at some key topics. And the key topics tomorrow, that's some of the things that we're looking on. And I can say it now because we already been working on it, is the same one. Barbados removed the Queen as head of state. That is one that we're planning to look at tomorrow. Families as head of state. Brexit is in turmoil. Black Lives Matter dance reaches over 20,000 complaints, but ITV stands firm. And Alicia Dixon says, "Kiss my black," whatever. COVID testing in chaos, and India hit big time with COVID. Trump strike historic deal with Israel and Arab countries, but not Palestine. Jamaica has record women in parliament. We said we're going to touch on the update on the Tooting regarding Lone Fisherman and Chris regarding what is happening over there, but somehow we're not getting much information properly to have a very effective discussion on that. So that's where we're at. And of course, Netflix and Cuties or whatever like that. Cancel Netflix now or something like that. We may touch on that really because that is something which is going on. And on Friday, definitely, I plan to have this lady here, Hannah Lou Reid, singer, songwriter, Hannah Lou Reid. And if I can find out some of the details from her, I think she sent me an email. 19-year-old singer, songwriter, originally from Plymouth. Let me see. Yep. Origin from Plymouth. Now studying for songwriting degree, and she wrote something about bullying. And she wrote on her body a lot of the things regarding bullying which has happened to her. She was on BBC, so we're going to talk to her about bullying, which is something which is very prevalent within the schools as well and as people's lives. So looking forward to speak to Anna on New Connections this Friday at 8 p.m. I try to give a present for young people at that time. And then on Saturday, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm planning to have a guy that teaches modeling. He's from Jamaica. His name is Jermaine Dwight or something like that. He teaches the Miss Jamaica contestants how to model. Not sure if it's going to work, but I'm working at it. If anything for him to come on. So yeah, looking forward to that with Dwight. So sort of take the whole thing away from the whole Brexit and the politics and the COVID and all those sort of things, and try to get things back to normal, some semblance of norm, if anything. So yeah, so that's setting the stage for the week, and much more to come. So ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today, and at the 16th of September 2020. But before I go, I need to actually share this quick word with you. And this is my Don't Go With The Flow series. Here we go. You can see right there a hand. And for those who are not on the YouTube or the Facebook, you will not see this hand. But it's a hand that cups like this for those on Instagram or watching now. It's a hand that cups like that. And the quote which I coined was this: things and circumstances may get out of hand, but that does not mean it has to get out of your hands. Things and circumstances may get out of hand, but that doesn't mean it has to get out of your hands. The principle about this is, and we know the saying all the while, things have gotten out of hand, man, I can't control it, it's all gone. It's like the same principle of don't go with the flow, where I say, people normally says, go with the flow. I just go with the flow, man. I can't bother. I just go with the flow, whatever. I always say, no, you need to keep back against that. Keep back against that by saying, don't go with the flow. Because if you go with the flow, you've been someone else's stream. Instead, one must be able to create your own rivers, create your own ways how you want to do things, and don't follow the typical style, the typical tradition of things of man. And it's somewhat similar now, where things and circumstances may get out of hand. And it does happen. It does happen where things get out of hand. But that does not mean it has to get out of your hands. This is whereby you still have some semblance of control, whereby it's up to you to allow it to get out of hand, because you still have the power. Once there's life, there's power. One can even call it absolute power, if anything. One would say it's in God's hands. But even if it is, but in order for it to be in God's hands, you have to allow it to go into God's hand by letting God take control. So ultimately still, it is in your hands, because God will not override the will of man. Simple as that. He will not. So that's my word for today as well. Things and circumstances may get out of hand, but that does not mean it has to get out of your hands. And it's a beautiful quote and a beautiful picture, which was designed by Deanne as well. So ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Thank you so much. And may God bless you, and see you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. for In Review, where we review the big news as well. Peace out and God bless. Oh, remember to like and subscribe to the show. Info SYLBOURNE TV on YouTube, SYLBOURNE TV on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube especially. That would be great. I do appreciate that. And yeah, that's it. Peace out. Good night. Bye-bye.